Welcome back once again, and this time we're going to continue things in Europe over in the semi-finals now. Obviously, all these teams are going to be competing this week and the next week to collect points based off their seeding, which can move them on to fight in the relegations.
And that's going to be very important, not only having a consistent performance this week, but also next week. I could predict we see teams that do well this week, but then other teams could kind of surpass them if they get that extra week of practice in. It'll be interesting to see how that kind of dynamic works out.
Now, these teams as well can change up over the course of these weeks as well, so you may see teams falter first week and actually remake into a new team the week after. We'll see how they do. But one thing we do have for sure is Variety's new team that got announced on Twitter as well earlier on. We know those boys, they've been around the scene, and what people are saying is the new EU super team.
I mean, you look down the list, Variety, Cuvo, Fred, Zeros, Trixtank, Arkill. That sounds like a new EU super team to me. Very, very strong mechanically. Cuvo Fred had an unbelievable season last year. It all kind of fell apart for him and the rest of Orbit at Super Regionals, but overall, this is definitely going to be a team to watch out for.
I mean, on the other half of the bracket, Stinky Cheese and Last Minute Monsters. Mr. Stefan and HalfDevil with IACEHD on that team up against the team that you saw a little bit earlier on, Stinky Cheese with Gorgonzolla. We'll see what happens down there later on. Hopefully, we'll follow one of those teams into the finals. But right now, it's all about this Variety team. And I guess the first question about Variety's new team is going to be, what kind of synergy they're going to have right off the bat?
I mean, when you look at it on paper, you've got a good core there. Zeros, Trixtank, Cuvo. Even if they've never teamed together, those three in particular, it's just teams that have been together, those players have been around the scene for so long that you really assume that they're going to be okay together. And then I look at the duo lane of Trixtank and Arkill. Those are two extremely aggressive players that like to play up, that like to play fast. We see Arkill play a lot of gods like Anher that want to kill you in lane, and that would go very, very well with the gods like Cabrakan that Trixtank likes to play.
And I'm interested to see how their communication will end up working out, because obviously Trixtank and Cuvo used to be the leaders of Orbit to an extent. I think they'll just fall into place there. Where Zeros, Arkill, and Variety end up on the list is going to be in a question. It could be a meeting of egos to an extent as well.
No doubt, as well as the fact that Zalia is a different player than Variety is in the solo lane. A lot of Variety success at Worlds, and he had an absolutely unbelievable event, but you got to give a lot of credit to Captain Twig and how he was able to set him up out of the jungle. Is Cuvo Fred going to be able to fill that same role for the Variety solo lane?
Well, we'll find out. Picks and bans are ready for this one, and we'll see how the Dutch Myrmidons can do this time round up against Variety's super team, so to speak. So, into picks and bans, and obviously the meta is still the same. It's still the world's meta that we all saw, so we're expecting Nike bans, Zeus bans, that sort of thing.
Absolutely. Definitely those sorts of bans, as well as the fact, Ratatosk are kind of surprised to see Variety's team ban that out. He had such a great performance on that at Worlds. I expect to see Dutch Myrmidons taking out the Thanatos as well, potentially.
And we'll see if they do take out the Thanatos indeed, because it has been running the solo lane as well as the jungle. Obviously, early pressure, very important in the Season 3 meta still, and because we're still staying on that, it's going to be the same thing.
Very, very important, and that's why you see the Zeus ban, like you mentioned, right away. I'm interested to see how Zero is going to do back in the middle lane. I mean, he was in the mid lane for so long, and then during Season 3 with Cringe Crew, goes to the solo lane, and then when that doesn't work out for them, he moves to the coaching role for Energy, helping them secure their back-to-back world titles. So excited to see Zero's back in the middle lane, and if we're talking Thanatos, you got to also mention his Thanatos middle. He's the king of the Thanatos middle.
I don't know if we'll really see that
here, come on.
though.
This is the right time for it.
Is it, though? Because everything's really on the line for this team right now. Is it really worth risking something like a Thanatos middle at this stage?
That's true, but again, you do have the second week if things don't go well, and if you're feeling as confident as you are with this sort of super team roster, I wouldn't be surprised. Thanatos, the first pick, no surprise there, and I really do think this could go to 3 potential players on this team.
I'd say guaranteed at least 2. Cuvo, Variety, Zeros, we're pushing it a little bit, but it could happen. Sylvanus, one of the top picks over at the World Championships too. Obviously, lane push is fantastic, so staying with the protections, his early game is actually pretty good for invades.
And that's exactly why we see him be so prioritized, is that early game push potential that he has, and the fact that he can just fight so well in the early game.
Erlang Shen as well alongside that. Erlang obviously going to get some changes in Season 4 overall, but right now, not too bad. We'll see how he works out. Obviously with Sylvanus, he's probably jungle or solo here.
Yeah, still very, very strong. Still has that cripple on pin, so you don't have to worry about those changes that are coming in Season 4. Freya locked in, no surprise there. This is definitely a very aggressive god like Arkill likes to play. Once you hit that 3-item sort of power spike, once you finish your Fatalis and a ring along with the boots, this is definitely an Arkill style of god.
And so far, they're not really giving too much much away, but now Khepri's been locked in. Kind of does dictate what's going to happen with this team now. I guess Trixang maybe taking a little bit of a back foot and being the aggressor on these initiations like he used to be on Orbit, and maybe allowing the rest of his team to facilitate that instead.
Well, I talked to Trix extensively about Khepri and his Khepri play in particular at Worlds because he was there with us casting, unfortunately, instead of playing. But he said it took a lot for him to get comfortable on Khepri because it is that completely different style of Guardian. I really like it with this composition, though. Throwing that Scarab's Blessing on top of Thanatos as he dives the backline, or into Freya as she's just doing what normal Freya thinks.
And when you've got a Thanatos and a Freya on your team, what do you want? A revive if they get taken out. That's absolutely fantastic for them to be able to do that. It also, it can pigeonhole them maybe into going for Ao Kwon for Dutch Myrmidons here to try and answer that back a little bit, but we've not seen too much of him just lately.
No, because he doesn't fight well in the early game. That's why we were talking about why Sylvanus is so good. That's why Thanatos has seen this revitalization, basically, is that early game pressure, as well as the late game executes that I think people finally got around to understanding. If you can get a Guardian or a Soul Laner down to 40% in the late game and then hit them with that hovering death, that is such a big swing.
What we've seen Thoth banned out here wasn't really overly prioritized in Europe for the grand scheme of things. North America really liked it at the World Championships, as well as some of the other regions too, but Europe not so much, and it's only going to get banned out in the counter ban phase, which is quite surprising to see.
Well, you know that Variety's new team has probably the jungler solo, though I still think Zeros could run it if he wanted to, and then the duo lane, so you've got first pick after the ban phase as well, so take some mages off the board and then get your priority mage, Giannis, being the pick.
With Erlang Shenlongton here as well for Dutch Myrmidons, we've already mentioned him a little bit so far, but I'm interested to see exactly what they're going to run with this, because early game is what we're talking about. At the moment, the early game lineup with the Sylvanus and Erlang Shen is pretty good, but they may need more. But Aphrodite, that is definitely a Zeros guy.
Definitely a Zeros god. That's definitely going in the mid lane. And you saw Energy's tier list that they put out afterwards, what they wanted to pick going into Worlds. Aphrodite was very, very high on that list. And like I mentioned, Zeros, a part of that Energy team that won back-to-back championships, this time as the coach, at least in Season 2 only. So no surprise to see him kind of prioritize that same sort of god.
And look exactly how this composition is going to work. You've got Aphrodite linking to either Freya or Thanatos. They could basically protect both these two carries with the Thanatos and Freya, with Khepri protecting one, Aphro with another, or one goes off and gets double protections because he's got two teammates supporting him the whole time.
This composition for Variety's new team is really, really scary. And then you've got Variety on probably his best god in tier, who's very strong in the meta right now. I mean, that is very... When was the last time you saw Variety be able to last pick a tier? I mean, that's the kind of power that having this many impact players can have.
Well, into game we go, and it's going to start off with Variety's team. They need a name, though. I think they really need a name quite badly, because right now it's not the greatest.
Yeah, you don't like that? No, Variety. I want to abbreviate it to VNT.
It would be helpful, that's for sure. If it wasn't.
It's a mouthful, really, at this stage. Variety's new team. It's like so many syllables.
Well, at the beginning of this, we're going to see the usual thing we saw at the World Championships as well, which is kind of everybody groups on the right-hand side looking for wall placements, potential picks, and obviously Dutch Myrmidons off to a good start. If you don't recognize any names there, I can tell you for sure Death Panther in the mid lane is a very recognizable name, as is Mike the Magikarp. They've both been around the scene for a while, as is Hoek as well, to be honest. The EU boys do have depth there, at least in the Challenger Cup sort of situation.
Yeah, the name that stands out for me for Dutch Myrmidons is Death Panther on this Giannis in the middle lane, and that's one thing that I think that Europe is very strong in, is mid laners, and so to be able to be a strong mid laner coming out of the Challenger Cup really says a lot about your skill level.
Well, no invades right at the beginning of the game. I say that, though, but look at Dutch Myrmidons on the left-hand side here, looking to potentially invade onto the red buff right now. The back Harpies is where Variety's team are right now, and they're looking to start those ones off at the same time, and Dutch Myrmidons are just patiently waiting, not realizing the red hasn't been done yet, but now the Variety team haven't been invaded. They start the red, and they get spotted.
No way to fight this with oh, excuse me, there are the beads. Arkil running for his life, has to just get out of dodge there, and that's I love this invade decision. Aphrodite Freya is terrible at level 1, just awful. No way to fight into an Awilish Giannis combination, as well as Jingwei there as well. Nice recognition from Dutch Myrmidons, understanding that, yeah, this comp seems scary on paper, and if it gets rolling, it definitely will be, but in the early game, it's really not.
These are the teams that haven't actually seen the light of day for quite a while here, but Dutch Myrmidons have really gone with the meta quite well. They sent Sylvanus, their support player, Hoek, over to the right-hand side to help facilitate Erlang Shen getting his blue buff, while the jungler ends up coming to the left-hand side here to help with that invade. Very, very good.
And you see the speed buff still standing for Dutch Myrmidons. Myrmidons because they want to make sure Mike the Magikarp's able to pick that up for himself. And I'm very surprised to see Trixtank on the right-hand side. There's no way to fight Thanatos tier in the early game. Even with a 2v3, you can really hold off pretty easily. So I think Trixtank would have been better served on that left-hand side, protecting the two poor early games.
Well, right now between the two, it's a bit of a lead for Variety's new team still in terms of gold right now. Surprisingly enough, I would have expected Dutch Myrmidons to be a bit further ahead based off of that invade, but not getting that first blood did hurt them because the right-hand side, the jungle and solo got most of the farm.
And that's true, but there's still one buff remaining for Dutch Myrmidons to take to kind of cut into this lead, whereas every buff is off the map already for Variety's new team, especially with Dutch Myrmidons just now picking up their red buff. Now they're going to head towards the speed.
And the speed buff is being looked at here with the push in from Trixtank to see if it's still being done. Support on its way from Variety as well, as the pull does connect from Hoek there onto Trix, but he's not going to be worried just yet.
Variety's here just doing whatever he wants, going in on a Mike the Magikarp, getting some good poke. Trixtank, they're fighting this 2v4 basically.
For the time being, but now they've got the support around the corner as well, potentially coming in from Zeros on the Aphrodite as well. As still you can see Erlangshen trying to get in the mix as well. Big SB trying to start it up once more. But all this is doing for Variety's team is causing pressure.
Variety looking for the Fearless, but the beads from Death Panther are going to keep him out, but now it's Hoek in a bad spot.
Out of mana as well, juggled in the air thanks to Tyr as well, but the good support from Erlangshen around the back will slow down the aggression for now, and it's actually Dutch Myrmidons forcing Variety's new team out.
Oh man, Mike the Magikarp just too low, but Trixtank caught in a bad spot. He's not going to be able to get out of there. Bass with the rotation from the duo lane picks up first blood.
And a big rotation that is as well. Fantastic pin, and Zeros is in trouble too. The ultimate is through, but it's not going to keep him alive long enough just now, and the big SB will claim second blood of this game. Dutch Myrmidons off to a great start.
And there you see the power of Jingwei being able to rotate in the early game, using that rapid reincarnation passive to get to that fight. Not able only to pick up that first blood, but then using that airstrike over the top of the mid camp. Zeros is still level 3, and he's getting ulted by the Hunter coming out of the right side jungle. Jingwei, not the magical hunter that we saw really dominate at Worlds, but you could see why she's the premier physical hunter right now.
And I love the fact of how this has started off. It just shows the depth Europe has right now. Variety's new team, these guys are like an all-star team, everyone's calling it. But Dutch Myrmidons, not really well known overall, but look at them. They're actually taking it to this new team that would have expected to stomp through this for the most part. Already had a bit of a deficit early on. It shows there is things in Europe still to come.
And we saw a little bit of this last time as well. Stinky Cheese got a little bit behind early, and that was a team with the more recognizable names that you kind of expected to win the game. And this is what happens against Challenger Cup teams a lot of the time. These teams, these established squads don't really give the respect that's necessary. They think that they can just fight 2v4, 3v4, something along those lines, and then they get punished for it. So it's going to be up to Variety's new team to recognize that they're playing a little bit over aggressive and kind of dial it back in response.
They do manage to seal away the blue buff on the right hand side, trying to slow down the big SB and the lead. He was slowly trying to try and catch up to what Variety's at level 6 right now, but for the time being, it's all good. The main thing with Variety's new team and what you'll see, hold that fort because Kivo's in a bit of trouble here.
Get pulled in, but the Khepri's ultimate is perfect from Trixtank. Beautiful positioning there from Trix. Not going in to do anything that he didn't have to, staying at a distance, and Cuvo trusting his longtime support. They're on a new team, but they're still together to keep him out of danger.
And the big thing there is a small win actually as a bit look to the right-hand side here because of the fact that only one ultimate was used by Trixtank there, whereas Dutch Myrmidons used 2 to try and pick off Kivo. They
actually used 3. The Yanasalt was also able to get through and hit him there. Big SB using the ultimate to keep Variety off of him just in case, but Variety's totally fine just clearing the wave there.
Yeah, just fine for the time being. Variety's continuing to pressure. Wheelix around the corner looking for pressure. Mike the Magikarp will find the knock-up. He's not got Gravity Surge available, however. Variety trying to 2v1. Cripple very good against Tyr at the moment, but the juggle is good, and the big SP's one hit from death. Sadly, Variety can't find it though. The feather step was just golden.
Couldn't quite find the last auto attack, but that's classic Variety. I mean, he gets ganked, he's about half HP, and then he just turns it around and almost kills the big SB by himself. This is what makes Variety so scary in lane.
His ability to just recognize how much he can do and how much they can do back to him, very important. He was very close to that one overall there. Still though, 2-0 in favor of the Dutch Myrmidons for the time being. The goal difference is still pretty much even now at this point in the game.
And that's a good thing for Variety's new team because their late game is going to be significantly scarier than Dutch Myrmidons. And that's why I like this draft from them so much, is the fact that you do have that early game on the right-hand side. You've got the Thanatos, you've got the Khepri that can kind of roll around and really make a big impact in the early game. And then as well as the fact that you've got the Tyr that can really bully the big SB in lane like we've been seeing. And then you've got the late game potential in mid and in your Hunter role. You've got that Aphrodite, which is a win condition by herself. And the same can really be said for Freya.
Gotcha. Well, I just found out something from production as well. Shouts to F-Dot for finding this out because I didn't realize Big SB is just a name change for Zashu. If you recognize that name before, he used to be on the Cringe Crew boys.
Yes.
So makes a bit more sense of why he's doing so well in the solo lane, but he is still behind to Variety overall with how things have been going so far.
Trixtank just trying to be a little bit annoying in the middle lane. That's what supports like to do, finding a little bit of poke onto Death Panther. But the Big SB, aka Zashu, is here in the right-hand jungle, and I don't know if they know about this.
Yeah, just keep an eye as well on Bass on the left-hand side. Jingwei was thinking about rotating here for extra pressure. Fantastic Death Scythe onto Death Panther there. Pretty standing in the grand scheme of things, but the chunk damage was useful.
Just so much damage. Mike the Magikarp trying to secure his speed buff over the damage from Variety, and he does, but he's got to retreat now. 4 members of Variety's team.
Pulled in there by Hoek, but no follow-up available for Dutch Myrmidons. They were looking to disengage. A bit off the mark there with the calls, but it worked out okay for the Dutch Myrmidons overall. They do lose the Elementals, however.
And this is what we see a lot from these Challenger Cup teams, that even when they get a lead against these established squads, they don't have the confidence to try and keep pushing their lead.
Oh, Arkel's in a lot of trouble here as well, being forced into the skies already, waiting for the landing. All the boys of the Dutch Myrmidons right now, and Mike the Magikarp and Bass will come along together to pick up a 3rd kill for them.
That's exactly what I want to see from these teams. That's exactly what I was just talking about. We don't see enough aggression when you have a lead in a lane or anywhere across the map, because it's this big, you know, scary, oh no, it's Variety's new team. This is the new EU super team, but Dutch Myrmidons were in the lead, and I love that gank there from Mike the Magikarp. Very, very well timed. Just recognize that Arkil was way too far up in lane. He can have ultimate, he can have purification. It doesn't matter. It's still Freya.
Quick pause in this game at the beginning. Obviously, this is a semi-final game as well, boys and girls, but it is a best of 3. You need 2 to go through to the final. So obviously, at the start of this one, Dutch Myrmidons off to a good lead. The big difference, though, I was going to get to this, but we saw so much fighting, is that as the game progresses, the experience kind of shines through most of the time. They're used to that mid-game deficit of being behind and how to fight back into it.
Very much so, especially like Variety Obey. That was kind of their calling card, was we'll lose for the first 15 minutes or so, then take one big fight and get the Gold Fury and turn the whole game on its head immediately. And then you think of like Trixtank, you think of Cuvo Fred. These guys have been around for so long. No surprise to see them be able to weather the storm and try and come back in a big way.
And they should be in a very good position to do that with this sort of roster and the composition they've got together here. Well, Big SB, known as Zashu, looking to steal away the blue buff there, but I'm not sure if he managed to do that. I'm not sure if Variety already had one on him. Actually, no, he did steal that one. Apologies for that, but rotation coming in from Cuvo Fred on the Thanatos too, looking to pressure back. Sadly, just a little bit too late.
And that's the Wrath coming up big there for the Big SB. I mean, we see Variety doesn't have one for himself, and we didn't see any in the game earlier on, include with Stinky Cheese. So that was kind of surprising to me, because we saw Wrath be so prevalent during the Worlds meta, during even Super Regionals. It was very important for the solo laners to pick up. So Variety not having it, that's where you see the Big SB able to really make that happen, even though Variety has the level lead.
Arco getting pressured on the left-hand side here by Mike the Magikarp again. The bad news is I think there's wards that's spotting him out on that left-hand side, as you can see, placed down just as he rotated around, so he's going to have to fall back for now. You saw Cuvo and Zeros were keeping an eye on the situation there just in case they were needed.
And Cuvo has that semi-global ultimate with the Hovering Death, so I like the fact that he's hanging around there, because remember, Arkil did just use that ultimate. It is back up now.
Catches Cuvo Fred there on that side, but I don't think there'll be any follow-up there. Is Arkil. No purification available. I said that, but he did have it back up. Great banish in response to Jingwei jumping in. And Jingwei's forced to airstrike out because he's been a little bit worried about a rotation coming.
Arkil is saying, all right, you got my purification, but I'm going to get your ult in response. Way to turn it around there. And that's because of those wards on that bottom left-hand side from Variety's new team. They knew that Dutch Myrmidons had to back up because of that rotation potential from Cuvo Fred.
Well, right now you can still see Variety's team trying to pressure around the Gold Fury, get the wards down and place down. Great Death Scythe again in the mid lane coming out from Cuvo Fred there onto Death Panda once more. And Giannis is going to stay very far back here because the combination is very available for them. Just keep pressuring them out over and over again.
And that's one of the things that's best against Giannis is that poke, because he's able to just full commit to a fight so often with through space and time, with the portals. He can really play like an assassin, dipping in and out of the team fights. But he can't take that risk if he's half HP, and that's exactly what Thanatos excels at. And particularly, I've been very impressed with Cuvo Fred's Death Scythe accuracy so far this game. We saw Captain Twig, oh, Variety's actually out of mana here. He could be in trouble.
If he keeps hanging around, Zashu might have a chance here, otherwise known as the Big SB one more time. But into the tower he goes. He was looking for support, and with Trixtank coming over now, bit of pressure onto him as well. It's just going to clear the wave mainly. There's nothing really Variety can do right now without having a blue.
Very surprising not to see Dutch Myrmidons really take this information and go immediately toward the goal Gold Fury. Arkill still has no purification, so he's pushed up pretty far. And Trixtank really committing to that right-hand side for an entire wave. That was enough of a window for Dutch Myrmidons to try and make a play on the left.
We'll see if they're actually going to go for a play on the left, but it looks like they're just going to go for the left-hand Harpies instead for the time being. I do love how Dutch Myrmidons have done so far, though. I like the pressure they're trying to put onto Arkill a little bit more here, because when you look at this team overall, if I was to have to try and pick someone on paper, it would be Arkill, just because he's the less tenured player on this roster.
Without a doubt, the least experienced player on this roster for sure, but one with a ton of potential. I think we all saw it quite a bit. Yeah, the land plays that he was making on that on her in particular, just so impressive. But you're right. I like the game plan from Dutch Myrmidons, really picking on the inexperience of Arkill.
And also the fact he's playing a Freya as well. Getting a delay for the hyper carry is going to be important as the game goes on. Portal does hit tricks after the unstable vortex. Great knock up, great pull, but an immediate ultimate from Zeros applies almost a purification of any CC on his characters.
And Zeros has the Shoes of Focus. He's got that CDR option, so he's not worried about using that Undying Love too, frivolously, basically, in that jungle. And even if he didn't have that ultimate from Zeros, Trix still has a Scarab's Blessing. Dutch Myrmidons has to be very, very careful about really full committing to Trixtank with this sort of composition. It's going to be very hard to kill him.
And the way I'm looking at Zeros' build here as we watch the solo laners continue to duel is he's going to be a facilitator here. He's mainly going to be a supportive role in that mid lane. I'm expecting a very tanky sort of build with cooldown reduction. We've seen this come out quite a few times before.
I would really like to see a Spirit's Robe of some sort. I think that would really synergize well with that sort of facilitator, making sure the whole team's topped off, as well as the Rod of Asclepius is going to be absolutely key. Not only is it going to be great for Zeros, but that heal off Cuvo Fred's passive and off the Death Scythe, that'll be affected as well. That's going to be a big pickup for him.
Well, we talked about the pressure onto Arkill here, but the thing is, Variety's team seem to recognize that could be an option for Dutch Myrmidons here to try and exploit or abuse. So what they've done is they've warded heavily around that Gold Fury on the entrances to that duo lane, and the bad news is that Mike the Magic Cop is now wasting his time there a little bit. He's not able to find the gank he's looking for because Arkill is just well aware of the information of where he is.
And Mike the Magikarp has had a great start to this game, but not good enough. Hold that thought, I think. Cuvo Fred. Yeah, he's dead. Yeah, he's gone.
Cuvo Fred was already there in the sky waiting for it, and all we had to see was Variety get him low enough. The communication between that jungle and solo laner actually starting to show already. Very important to have that available to your team.
And with all the damage that Cuvo's put out, Zero's going to be able to knock them both back. Mike the Magikarp is here, but the root from Trixtank going to keep him off of Zeros for now. Portals is going to be used to make sure Trixtank isn't able to pull him any farther back, but all this poke damage, it's not that relevant with the heals.
Still looking for Trixtank though, and Cuvo's coming around the back as the ultimate again from Zeros will keep Trixtank tanky enough for the time being. Meanwhile, Zeros is going straight for Panther, who's forced to portal out round the back as well. And now Mike the Magicop's in a bit of trouble as Variety comes in. The Lore is here, and the Lore will secure a kill.
Boss around the back, but he's going to get Fearless immediately. Purification used from him. Cuvo still hitting that front line with that Death Scythe. He's got so much HP regeneration from hitting those abilities, as well as the heals from Zeros if needed. And this is where the composition for Variety's new team really starts to take shape.
It really felt like the Dutch Myrmidons in that mid lane, they tried to push it too much. They tried to make it worthwhile with the investment into the abilities, but now instead it's the Variety's new team that are causing the problems for him, and Hoek's going to go down as well as they start to realize the difference in skill level now.
And there it is. I mean, Freya's got 2.5 items completed, and she's starting to do a ton of damage. Love the root over the wall there from Trixtank to really secure all that damage onto Hoek, and like you mentioned, this is just the experience shining through right now for Variety's new team.
Meanwhile, Gold Fury is being done by Variety's new team, thanks to Variety being able to pressure that speed buff. Obviously, he's not going to get it, but he does draw enough attention to make sure nobody can get to the left-hand side.
And looking at the graphs, yeah, you can see the gold difference now shooting up just over 2,000 gold, and as well as about 2,000 experience. And the big difference for me has been Cuvo Fred versus Mike the Magikarp in the jungle. You're picking the Sawillish in the jungle to get early pressure, and they got it on the left-hand side. They were able to get Arkill's Purification. They were able to steal away the red buff, but that's really been it overall. It's been Cuvo consistently poking out in the middle lane, and that's one of the disadvantages of a Willish, is that you have to be very, very close to do your damage. Oh, Mike the Magikarp!
That was a bad feather step, and he's in a lot of trouble there. One hit from Death. Is Lawbringer available for Variety to go for this? He's got it up, but obviously Suku could cause an issue. The blink and the dead.
That's nice.
Beautiful combo from the pair.
Very, very nice play there. Zero's able to pick him up, and now he might be in a bit of trouble, taking a lot of damage. Perfectly timed ultimate. Immunes the Terra's Wrath, though.
And he's still going to survive. Cuvo Fred now rotates into this fight as well. Big SB trying to be a frontline for his team on the Erlang Shen. Cuvo Cuvo gets very low there, forced his Sanctuary away, but being chased down now by Big SB, Cuvo could be in a lot of trouble, but the sustain is just too good.
And a great move as well to sidestep that knock-up from the Big SB. Portal not going to find a home for Giannis. Pull is, though, on a Trix tank, but he's just so tanky already.
Yo, shout out to Hoek and these pulls. They've been on the mark. He's constantly hitting them over and over again. And to be fair, this is against an SPL level team that would be experienced against Sylvanus. These pulls are amazing.
Yeah, but the plays from Zeros have also been amazing, and that's been the big problem. He's been keeping everyone alive. Now they're going to be looking at the blue buff. Trix tank going to be able to pull the Big SB. Nice double portal. They're going to force the purification onto Cuvo Fred, but the damage is just too much to
However, he's
handle.
not in execute range right now, sadly, so he's going to go onto Death Panther, force a purification there as well, and make sure it works out a little bit more worthwhile for Variety's new boys. Sorry, new team, new boys right
New
now.
boys, I mean, yeah, new squad, new, you know, whatever. You can just go with whatever, that's fine.
Arco rotate you towards mid lane there, thanks to Bass coming over, but now he's in a bit of trouble in the jungle on this side.
Whoa.
Fantastic banish, but there's still backup coming through. The pulse damage is good, and the ultimate was better to avoid the feather step there. Now Mike the Magic Carp is one hit from death.
And that's what I'm talking about. Arkill is just playing so aggressively and willing to fight 2v1. He's low on mana. He doesn't care. And Mike the Magikarp just hasn't been able to get anything going in this jungle.
Already below half health is Hoek right now, but he is a tanky frontliner to come weather the storm for the time being. But his team are forced back behind their tier 1 tower now, which is weakened down below half health. As the right hand side will also see that tower fall as well in favor of Variety's new team.
And Variety just making it happen. And again, it's this right side that I keep going back to it, but it's Cuvo Fred, 2 levels in the jungle. You've got a level on Variety as well. So 3 levels total on your early game characters that you wanted to have leads, and that's gone exactly according to plan so far for Variety's new team. Arkil and Boss about equal in farm, and then in the middle lane you see Zeros giving up a level to Death Panther, but that's okay. You're Aphrodite. If you're only 1 level down at 16 minutes with 1 death, you're in a perfect spot to really make an impact in the later stages.
We're talking about impact in late stages. Bass here on this Jingwei and Death Panther in the mid lane. Neither of them have died just yet, but maybe cast his curse. No, Death Scythe will miss, and he won't find that for now, but those two will be the carries of the Dutch Myrmidons as this game goes on. They have to make sure they can get to that late game stage.
That's the big concern for me, is that against Aphrodite you want burst, but you want not all 1 burst, because the Aphrodite ultimate's going to be able to counter that, but you need 2 instances of burst basically to get that ultimate out and then kill the healer, because the sustained damage isn't going to be enough.
Cuvo Prep pulled in, used by the gravity surge there from the Magikarp, knocked up again. The damage is real there, but Trixank's going to ult Cuvo very early as Arkel rotates in, forcing Dutch Panther back, as well as Mike the Magikarp, who's going to run for his life as well. Fantastic work there, not enough for a kill, however, but it will pressure the team once more.
Variety using the Fearless to get in there. Now Bass just walks right into it. Unfortunately, the rest of the team just zoning him out. Cuvo up in the sky, looking to get someone into execute range. Can't quite find it with the execute, but he's going to get it with the Death Scythe.
And now the Big SB did manage to get his ultimate off there to get frontline taunted in, but there was no real follow-up. The tier 1 tower does fall down, and the sustain is starting to make an impact now for Variety's new team.
Absolutely, just not enough anti-heal. Really no anti-heal at all. 1 Pestilence is basically it. Through space and time, going to dissect the team fight nicely, but Mike the Magikarp's cut off himself.
And now he's going to get fall down immediately there. Yeah, Arkel picking up that 1. The banish good as well to disengage. The boys of Variety's going to fall back once more. I'm going to call them Trix boys now.
Trix boys, yeah.
It's going to be something short. Variety's new team is just way too long.
Very much so, but he's trying to make it happen anyways, blinking in, finding the purification from Death Panther, but the Big SB trying to keep all this damage off of his backline. He'll do so successfully, and this is one of the weaknesses of Trix's boys' composition, is the fact that they don't have that tower push available to them. Freya not able to knock down those structures effectively. Thanatos will be able to with that extra pen from Scent of Death, but has to be in melee range with the tower, a little bit more difficult to do.
And as an assassin, a little bit squishy to be able to reach that range as well for the most part. 6-3 though, approaching 19 minutes in now, about 3,000 gold lead for the team of Variety's new team. I'm so annoyed by the they call themselves that, because as I keep saying it, it's getting annoying now after a while, but I'm like, well played, boys.
Well, I mean, you can see their clan tag, VNT.
We'll call it VNT.
VNT?
Let's go with VNT. Gold Fury started up by DM, or Dutch Myrmidons here, over on the left-hand side, and the Gold Fury is already below half health right now. And it looks like he's going to get this one from free, because nobody on VNT have noticed this.
Very, very smart heads-up play there from Bass, and that's exactly what the Dutch Myrmidons needed to kind of stay relevant in this game. 5,000 gold is a not great spot to be in. You're like, okay, we have to really make sure we make a play. But 2,000 gold, not a big deal. We can absolutely make something happen. We could fight at a 2K gold easily.
Especially with his towers still standing in the mid lane for them to take down the tier 1 would even it up a little bit more as well. A lot of talent still available for both these two teams to really invest into. Keep an eye on itemization-wise. Obviously, Arkil very much online now. Did go for the spear there, which is very interesting to me. The spear that makes us over the obsidian shard.
Yeah, that is very interesting. I like the idea of not stacking obsidian shards. It's really not efficient if you've got two magical damage dealers to both go obsidian shard. But I really think that Zero should have been the one to go for the spear to make us because of the lovebirds. It's a tick damage. However, you are not, I guess, actually, no, I think I like this more because the spear is going to be proccing on the Pulse Irradiate combination, of course. But then Zero's, the big damage for Aphrodite really isn't from lovebirds. It's from the back off, and that's one instance of damage. And so the obsidian shard is going to be more impactful in that. Plus, lovebirds not exactly a reliable team damage ability. You're not going to be hitting that most of the time. It's going to be focused on healing, whereas Arkill's always going to be applying those spear procs. I kind of like this pickup instead.
Well, right now you can see VNT are pressure in mid lane, which is allowing Arkil to just free-farm the dual lane, pick up a free tier 1 tower, and now Dutch Myrmidons have got a question. Do they go to the left-hand side here to defend? But over on the left-hand side, Variety is waiting in the wings for a potential pick onto Bass, who's just come back from Vix.
He's going to take a lot of damage, but not any relics used. He's going to be forced into the airstrike, but getting that Valkyrie's discretion down is a big win overall for Dutch Myrmidons.
Yeah, Bass there, a little bit of a misplay against the Fearless. I guess he doesn't know the mechanic too well against the Jingwei, because obviously if you try and leap out of it just as the juggle's still going on, you'll continue to get juggled. But there's a Lawbringer from Variety, doesn't find a home, neither does the Fearless, so they fall back away from the tower.
Now, both teams do have sustain, and so you've got Hoek on that Sylvanus. He's going to heal up Mike the Magikarp like you're seeing right now, but it's not as strong. The Fearless, though, is strong. Death Panther already dead.
And into the sky goes Cubo, looking for a dunk, hits 2. It's mainly the front line, though, but at the back, the other side of the things, Mike the Magikarp forced out on Suku's Variety, and Trixtank still holding the front line.
Variety healing as much as he can underneath that tower, rooted there by Hoek, but not enough damage to keep him away, and that's the big Achilles heel of this composition for Myrmidons. Like I mentioned, not enough overall burst damage to deal with this front line.
2 towers down now in the mid lane, so they can assault the Phoenix as well, and with 1 member being dead on Death Panther, they're looking at Hoek as well. He'll be the next to fall, down to 3 members against the whole team of VNT.
Now the Phoenix gonna fall as well. Middle Phoenix gone. Arkill's not done yet. He's still looking, and he's gonna find Jingwei in the Titan room.
And there's a Lawbringer into a Fearless combo that's gonna hit the big SB right now. He's running for his life, the root in place, followed by the Abduct. There's no real escape here for the Erlang Shen. He's gonna fall as Mike the Magikarp will use Suku to get back to safety.
Zero's not done though. He's still diving, uses back off very, very well there to position himself to knock Death Panther away from his fountain, but still not quite enough damage. Arkill's got enough though. Are you kidding me?
I mean,
he's killing people in the fountain.
Yep, the confidence right now from the team of VNT is really being shown. This is obviously the first game. It is a best of 3. So as we look at this, if it continues this way, aggro, what needs to change for Dutch Myrmidons next game? Because on paper, they had a fantastic start as well, to be fair.
They did a great job of ganking Arkil, and they got his ult, and they killed him. And then they came back and got his purification, and didn't kill him. And then they never revisited that lane whatsoever. And by that time, anyways, he'd already completed his boots. He'd already completed his Fatalis. It's difficult to keep up with the speed of Freya in lane. We can see that Freya is the problem in the late game. I mean, taking a look at the damage, he's going to be the one who's doing most in this really team fight. So you can see right there, top of the player damage charts. They had the idea, like, let's shift on the Freya early, but it just, you have to full commit to that sort of idea. Or you need to make sure that their early game doesn't get ahead enough to kind of carry Arkil towards those later stages of the game. It can't be kind of half and half.
And right now, we are still in the mid-game for all intensive purposes. Late game really starts to kick in around 25 to 28 minutes for the most part overall, but it is an 8k gold lead now. It has accelerated thanks to that Phoenix going down and the amount of kills they just got for free.
And that's just so much farm available to them. We saw the golden hand. It was Freya had almost 3k, 2.6, I believe. Yeah, right around 3k right now as Arkil is finally deciding to back. And you got to give shout out to this guy, the big lobster Trix. Not with lobster anymore, but playing this Khepri very, very well. We saw there as they're retreating from the Titan room, he throws Scarab's Blessing onto Arkil just in case he gets hit by through space and time. Just a heads up play from him. He's been setting up so much, and Khepri isn't that initiator sort of guardian. He isn't your setup god, but Trix is playing it just like that, playing it very well.
And VNT doing a good job of controlling the jungle here. This is what you'll see from the more experienced teams, actually just cutting off the path of rotations to come in support, to channel everybody through the same area. It allows them to get to the tier 2 tower easier, and by the time the team's even there, it's already down.
And that's where you see the Thanatos tower push potential from Cuvo Fred. He's got the Titan's Bane. He's got the Brawler's Beat Stick. He's basically maxed out on Flat Pen right now with Scent of Death active as well. So he's going to be able to swing on these Phoenixes and towers.
Not even waiting for the minions to push in mid lane. They're going to try and force it a little bit harder on this side. The Abduct does hit onto Bass, going to force the purification off him as Hoek on the front line needs a bit of poke there for a moment. But immediately Bass going for aggression onto Cuvo, who's just trying to keep them busy around the back with his boy Variety.
Variety taking a lot of damage though, not able to find the heal either. Now pulled back in by Mike the Magikarp, but the Scarab's Blessing is well timed from Trixtank. Is he going to be able to get it off? No, Variety tried to suicide, but didn't have enough time.
Very good work from Dutch Myrmidons, so just hold off on that and be patient, but Cuvo will execute Hoek at the same time. The Phoenix is only at half health here, and it's actually VNT on the run now. Dutch Myrmidons, they've got a chance back in this one because the boys of VNT are falling down one by one.
Arkill had everything up except for ult, but still died. Now Trix going to be the next to fall. 3 dead, 3 for 1, and it's only the support falling for Dutch Myrmidons.
Talk about respect, and that's what happens. If you don't respect your opposition, you will pay the iron price, and they are right now. One by one, they fall down. This could be a fire giant for Dutch Myrmidons right now.
Absolutely. Big SB has the Wrath available. It's only Zeros as well. Zeros playing very far up. He does have both relics available, and that's why you see
he's going to die for this.
Him playing this way. But
if he continues this, he's got to be very careful for teleportations. And yeah, Zeros is doing a good job of keeping him busy and getting poke off, but if he hangs around too long, he could end up falling down here as well. He's got to time this well and be very careful about his decision making.
Mike the Magikarp has to be careful about his decision making though. Just standing there taking that. Big SB does have the Wrath. That's what they're relying on right now. They will find it. Fire Giant goes on to all 5 members of Dutch Myrmidons, teleport in from Variety, not in time either. So Dutch Myrmidons able to kind of take that. And that's, I was so surprised to see VNT push that Phoenix without going for Fire Giant whatsoever. I loved the tower call. Grab the tower, then back up, bait them into the Fire Giant, make sure they've got nowhere to run. But instead they figured, yeah, we can just do this Phoenix. And it just didn't work out.
I mean, even the minions in mid lane weren't pushing. They weren't actually at where the Phoenix would be. They didn't have any fire minions on the Titan at that time. They could have waited and pushed that in a little bit more. We normally see that from them. They're a tenured team. They know what they're supposed to do. That was a lack of respect there, and it could come back to haunt them.
I agree with you, because you saw Variety on the backhand side just looking for someone to fearless. He was basically just spinning around like, okay, who do I fearless? Couldn't find anyone, then isn't able to find it, and he gets pulled back in by Mike the Magikarp, and that's what really sets up that whole chain of events. It's all due to that missed fearless and missed positioning there from Variety.
And it was more the Soul Reaver that proc from Death Panther that got him so low in that situation as well. He didn't know that item was available, so Death Panther made that work for his team. And the Giannis is starting to step up now. The player damage should be a lot higher on the side of Death Panther now as this game goes on. With a Soul Reaver, with a Rod of Tahui, he should start climbing these leaderboards.
Second on the team right now, only behind Bass, who's had a really solid game. Hoek taking a lot of damage, but it's around the side, the through space in time.
Hold straight away, and the airstrike from Bass will pick up Arkill. One frontliner down. Trixtank not in range to even keep him alive. Now he's going to be focused down thanks to the pole. Knock up again. Pull back in from Gravity Surge. Knocked up again. Down goes Trixtank. And the Dutch Myrmidons are rallying right now.
Hoek's got to realize that there's a tier 1 tower. He will eventually and back up to that left-hand side, but just not any vision on that left. And very surprised. I mean, Variety's new team has still had the lead, yes, but that's 5 members of Fire Giant, and we're getting to the late stages of the game. That was a beautiful ult, though, by Death Panther. Just immediately recognizing that he had a great angle there. No one knew where he was, fires it off, hits 2 immediately. Great fight from him.
Full respect from Dutch Myrmidons now as they're looking for a Phoenix themselves against only 3 members as 2 are still dead on BNT right now. Zero's forced to roll early in that fight, but Variety got a lot of poke off into Mike the Magikarp. Meanwhile, though, Cuvo Fred, 1 hit from death. The big SB wanted to chase for the kill, but instead the team call is to fall back because the Phoenix is already down.
Very disciplined their call from the Dutch Myrmidons. They get that left-hand Phoenix, the best Phoenix to get, and then you've got these 2 towers still standing in the middle lane as well as another tower on the right-hand side. I'd like to see them continue to push, basically. Mike the Magikarp's a little bit low, but you've got the sustain from Hoek, you've got the sustain from Fire Giant, and this is your advantage time with that fire. Once this fire goes away, it's basically even again.
But they did at the same time. They used all their ultimates. They were all on cooldown. VNT had just respawned, and they've got 4 available for them right now. Seems to be an air of caution about that. Maybe look for the next Fire Giant again. They still have a little bit of time, is it? Yeah, they've got a little time for the
a little bit over a minute. A little bit over a minute. minute.
I think it's a wise call.
They've got to make sure that they get there as soon as possible, and that's a great recognition as well, that they do have all those ultimates down, and that Zeros was the only one who'd expended his in that last little skirmish. Arkill and Trix Tank here just pushing up these fire creeps on the left-hand side, but this opens up the tier 1 tower in middle.
A little bit risky from Zeros there, walking around that corner for a second. I was like, hold up, I don't know what you're thinking about. I know what Dutch Myrmidons are thinking about, however, which is that tier 1 tower. Will they go for the tier 2's the question? They're all grouped, ultimates available. Keep an eye on the relics, though. At the moment, you can see that Hoeg doesn't have either Curse or the Shell available.
But they recognize that Zeros had very little mana. He was either going to fight with little mana or back, and he chose to back, so they take that opportunity to snag up that tier 2 tower in the middle lane, and all of a sudden, a game that looked all but over in favor of VNT, Dutch Myrmidons are in the lead.
And this is, for me, on paper right now, VNT have played this like a rank game right now. I mean, to be fair, they're a new team, but they did play like a rank game. They were winning the game. Let's dive in and end it. Didn't work out for them. Meanwhile, Dutch Myrmidons, they played it like a team that has been together for a while, at least trying to work on this and progress and respect their opposition.
And the big problem was for that end call, or the ability to potentially end once they got that middle Phoenix, and Death Panther was the only one alive, is the fact that you had a tier 2 tower in left and in right, as well as those 2 Phoenixes. And remember, the Titan gets tankier the more structures that their team still has up. So without all that, without that HP and protections being stripped away by taking those objectives off the map, it would have been way too difficult to kill the Titan. But instead they're diving the fountain, just getting kills. Arkill's trying to ult Death Panther in the fountain to kill him, maybe with a deicide, but even then, they had a couple people coming up. I really think that it would have much better served VNT to go back and get that Fire Giant, which ultimately ended up giving Dutch Myrmidons the window into the game, was that Fire Giant buff.
And the best thing about things for Dutch Myrmidons right now is the Phoenix on the left is going to be down for a while longer just yet. So this Fire Giant will be with Fire Minions still pushing down the left-hand side. And that's why we see Variety on the left trying to deal with those for now to make sure they're not going to be a consequence and potentially cause more issues later on down the line if they lose this fight, the Fire Giant.
Exactly. He does have that teleport available, and that's why you see him on the left-hand side. Interesting to see Dutch Myrmidons call here because they do have that Wrath, whereas VNT does not. They're going to have to rely on the burst to really get it away from Dutch
So maybe
Myrmidons.
they look at trying to focus down big SB, but at the moment it's already down. Fire Giant goes the way of Dutch Myrmidons, and immediately it looks like Variety's new team want to disengage. Variety goes to the back, missing the Fearless there after the blink, looking for pressure onto Panther, but Panther missing the unstable Vortex. Variety will get the ultimate out again, Space and Time hits 2, but it wasn't a great shot really, but they may be able to come off this and continue to chase.
Cubo gonna go up into the sky, not in time though. The big SB able to pick him up. All 5 members still have Fire Giant, and there, just not enough recognition of how much burst damage they were going to do to that Fire Giant.
Very, very good situation for Myrmidons now. 1 member dead. Respawn time as well. As you can see, the longer the game goes, the longer those respawns are. 40 seconds and a 4v5 against the Fire Giant team. The left Phoenix is due up soon. It'll be interesting to see whether they go for this one now on the right or go to the left first of all.
The left Phoenix, yeah, very, very close to respawning. So a couple more fire waves though. Zero stepping up, trying to get a little bit of poke, but the pull is on a Variety.
Not very best choice. He's going to Fearless 3, but forced into Purifications, juggled on the edge. Variety looking for the Lawbringer, not going to get away. Arkill did use the ultimate there, Valkyrie's Discretion, looking for the pick on Panther, but it wasn't enough damage. And now Myrmidons are still pushing forward. Panther's in trouble on the backside, but he's still alive for now.
But Trix is in trouble now. He's got that Mantle of Discord, but it doesn't even matter. Bass able to pick him up. Now Zero's rooted in place. The Phoenix still standing. Arkill knocked up.
This is game. I swear they can end the game right now. The Phoenix on the left-hand side is about to fall. They're Fire Minions on the left here. Bit of sustain coming out. They've got Fire Giant, don't forget. They could end the game right now if they recognize it, but they're showing a lot of respect to the boys of VNT right now.
Look at how many ultimates they have as well. I agree with you. That was the end. That was the end call right there.
Yeah.
They had the Fire Giant minions.
But there's the difference right now, right? You're having a bit of a nosebleed. You're against the team VNT. When you look at them on paper, you're like, this is going to be rough. But then you're ahead. And you've got 3 Phoenixes down, and you're like, you know what? Let's play this real safe. But the problem is, against a team like this, that could be a window of opportunity for them to come back into it.
It absolutely could, and you never know when Arkill's just going to be able to run through a team fight and basically do whatever he wants. He hasn't had the impact. He was 4-1 at the stage where we were talking about how much damage he was doing, and he's eaten 2 deaths since then, not able to have the kind of late game impact that you expect out of the Freya in the Hunter role. But for me, it's been Variety, who's just not been able to find the normal plays that we've seen him make. It's been him, 4 or 5 people deep. He's been getting hit by that Khepri ultimate, but if you're investing that much to keep Variety alive and he's not getting Purification out, the only play we saw was that 3-man Fearless on the right side Phoenix, but by then Cuvo was already dead, and so they can't follow up with the Execute. Variety needs to be a little bit more careful about his position because Dutch Myrmidons clearly have the damage to handle him right now.
We never really spoke about this in picks and bans, but when you do look at VNT's roster here, they do struggle for engage, and they're going to be relying on a tier coming in with a Fearless over and over again. There's no real further follow-up to that. Maybe Trix Tank going aggressive a little bit now and again, but do you really want that from a Khepri?
Not usually. Arkill already used Purification, forced into Zero's ultimate. Death Panther, though, pinned up against the wall, taking a ton of damage, but it's Variety.
Execute will come through from Cuvo, and over the wall goes Variety, back to safety. He'll pick him up, but Bath takes out Variety overall in the end of it. Meanwhile, the fight's still going on. Don't forget Fireman, you're starting to point to the pace of VNT as Arkill is being beaten down by the big SP.
Trix just trying to keep everyone out of the Titan room. It's not going to be able to do it, I don't think. Taunted back in. Big SB able to pick up his 4th kill of the game. 2 dead right now. Titan very, very squishy.
But they've got to respect Arkill, who's trying to motorboat into there on purpose, trying to get the Bass down at the moment because Bass is doing so much to the Titan at the moment. Minions on the left-hand side. There's 2 fire minion waves coming in. They could end this and take game 1.
I think they're going to. There it is. It is. It's going to be Dutch Myrmidons beating Variety's new team. Very, very surprising there. That was VNT's game to take.
I did not expect that at all. Coming into this, I saw the rosters and I'm like, okay, cool. This is a Challenger Cup team of Myrmidons here that look pretty solid, but I don't think they're going to have the quality to really beat them right now. But as you look at it here, it's going to be a big issue going forward because now they're at a 1-game deficit.
Yeah, very, very close game, but ultimately it was Dutch Myrmidons pulling it out. And that last engagement, we saw Trix Tank Scarab's Blessing a little bit off. We saw Variety Lawbringer over the wall and then die in the jungle because the Scarab's Blessing hit Cuvo Fred, crashing down right in front of him. Unfortunate timing there. Still some kinks to work out for Variety's new team, it looks like.
But it is only 1 game. It is a best of 3. This team has been in this situation before. On paper, still, I still think VNT have this in the bag, I'll be honest. But the way those Myrmidons boys played today, they look absolutely awesome. Hoek, Death Panther did come up in the later game. That was really important for them.
And Bass was great all game. He makes the great rotation in that right-hand jungle. He picks up the first blood, and he was just pounding into the other team consistently. There's the double through space and time, but as Bass is able to pick them up here, really, really solid play from the Hunter player.
It's Christmas Day for a Hunter in that situation where they're that low and you're like, thank you very much, I have all my abilities up. Sits in the back line well, stays near his carries, keeps himself protected well.
And did a very, very great job of that. And the protection is a great point that we really didn't see anyone from Variety's new team be able to get into that back line effectively. They would kind of bait Variety in and then retreat and collapse on top of him. They were waiting for him to dive in, and then they'd back up so that he wouldn't get any support from Zeros. Remember, there is a distance link for that Aphrodite kiss, so they're not going to be able to get that healing, not going to be able to get that Undying Love, as well as keeping him away from Trix Tank to make sure he can't get that Scarab's Blessing ultimate. Back up and then collapse around him, give him that damage that he can't really handle, and that's exactly what we saw time and time again from Dutch Myrmidons.
I mean, lack of engage was a real issue for VNT there, but they did throw the game at the right-hand Phoenix, I feel, overall. They had the advantage there, they were in full control.
No harm, no foul. They won. It's all right.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm saying VNT threw that game.
Oh, no. Yeah. Harm, foul, they threw 100%. But I thought you were talking about whenever we thought that Dutch Myrmidons could have ended the game.
No. I mean, we agree with that one.
Yes.
But, you know.
Yeah, you know.
This is what I deal with. This is what I deal with.
Why? It was just a little misunderstanding.
They don't listen.